Athletic. It's nice to talk to him after a win. It's better than talking to him after a loss. It's always nice to talk to Matt Barrows of The Athletic, but I'd much rather talk to him after a victory. That's just the homer in me.
Yeah.
I will try not to. The score is now 1-1 on almost choking to death during interviews. Yeah. Jason, it's your turn.
I'm on the clock.
I see that water bottle is empty.
Yeah.
So
should be okay.
But you never know. Okay, but don't aspirate anything as we welcome in Matt Barrows. Good morning, Matthew.
Yeah, it's the rule of threes, Jason. So
I'm ready.
We're looking for that triad.
But it was years apart. So I think I've got about a 8-year cushion.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, by then you'll aspirate some Metamucil or whatever we're drinking by then.
Might be in the senior center.
Yeah, we would have been drinking heavily if that's your bag last night. Matt, talk about a tale of two different quarters. Hell, talk about a tale of two different halves. A boring first half, then the Niners go absolutely bonkers in the third. Then CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys go bonkers in the fourth. And Matt, I said earlier, and you're always good at kind of calming down my verbose statements, that I said I had this feeling watching the fourth quarter that if the Cowboys were to come back and win that game, and to be clear, I said it earlier, I'm not one of those fire Shanahan guys. Like, I'm whatever camp that is, I'm in the other camp. And I'm not saying he would have been fired, but I started thinking, God, if they lose to the Cowboys this way at home, considering everything, do they go from like buyers to sellers instantly? What kind of dramatics happen? I just feel like there was really a lot on the line in that fourth quarter there.
Yeah, I mean, in the game, too. This was sort of a crossroads game. I mean, were they going to be – this is what I wrote about after the game. Were they going to be like their 2020 selves? That was the team that absolutely fell apart early in the season. They just basically gave up on the season at some point because of the injuries. Or were they going to be, the next couple of years after that, where they – sort of galvanized at midseason and put together second half comebacks. And you're right. If they had blown that and they were up by, I forget what the margin was at one point, if they had blown that, it would have been very hard to escape the idea that this season is just fated against them. And they're going to get sucked under by the undertow at some point. Especially coming out of that bye. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it was one of those, as a writer, you're on deadline, it's late, you've gotten your story, storyline written, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, I might have to write an entirely different story here because they almost gave it up. And it was so easy for Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb to hook up. It was embarrassingly easy. Blown coverages, guys running into each other. They just marched down the field, two really, really simple touchdowns that got the Cowboys right back into that very quickly.
By the way, 27-10 was the deficit
peak.
That's referring to 27-10 going into in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So Matt, in the game, by the way, Matt Barrows brought to you by Stockton Honda. Matt, you mentioned earlier injuries earlier, and they've been happening to this team. And even in the game again, we saw Mason, we saw Debo. How serious and how concerning are those injuries going forward?
I don't think that they're concerning. Now, I've said that before, and then the guy ends up missing a couple of games. Juwan Jennings being one, and then Christian McCaffrey being the much bigger one. So we'll have to see. Deebo Samuel did not speak after the game. I overheard him telling a PR guy that he wasn't feeling great afterwards, and you can understand why. He was dealing with a wrist injury. He had pneumonia earlier in the run up to the week, and then hurt his rib. Not to the point where he had to be carted to the sideline. He spent the rest of the game on the sideline, sort of yucking it up with his teammates. Indication is that he's okay. I think this bye week, for Jordan Mason, it's as important to him as anyone. He'll get back after that. That shoulder just needs, a week, 10 days of no one hitting it. And that's what he'll get with the bye week. So, there's a number of guys who are really going to benefit. I mean, Fred Warner, he admitted yesterday that he hasn't been 100% after that ankle injury in week 4. And I think we've all kind of seen that in his play. He wasn't quite the guy the last 4 games as he was the first 4. Juwan Jennings ought to benefit. So this ought to be a much fresher, healthier team in Tampa than it was against the Cowboys. And, to me, I think that probably plays a role. I mean, early on, the issue for the 49ers, they were having trouble tackling. The Cowboys were getting a lot of second effort yards. I think that was the difference between a team coming off its bye and a team badly needing a bye. And you saw that, and the 49ers were able to sort of get on top of that in that third quarter.
Matt Barrows of The Athletic with us. One thing we were talking about earlier, and I spoke to you about this last Monday, Matt. This very much feels like John Lynch time. This bye week comes at really a perfect time if you're going to have a bye week for the Niners. I'm not necessarily trying to put out there that the whole schematic of the roster will change, but I feel like I'd be surprised if the roster looked exactly the same when they come back after this week. You agree with that?
Yeah, and it's almost as if they've set the precedent that that this is a team that does something at the trade deadline, and they've done it every year. But 2018. So if you don't, it's almost an admission that we don't think it's in the cards for us right now. And I know they don't think that, but I think people would be scratching their heads if the 49ers didn't do something. And that's usually what teams, for years and years, deadline trades were so rare that you wouldn't think twice about it if a team didn't make a move. But these days, especially the 49ers are aggressive about it. I think that there's a good intersection between need and availability at defensive end. Seem to be a lot of defensive ends available for trades. And that's my guess on where a trade will happen, what position a trade will occur.
Myles Garrett, obviously, right?
That's Myles or Max Crosby, probably.
Max Crosby.
Both,
just
probably.
Give away your next 5 first-round picks for Max Crosby.
Is the other Bosa healthy? He never is.
Get all the Bosas.
All the Bosa.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Matt, in the wake of these injuries, other people have had opportunities yesterday. I thought what we saw from Pearsall and Garendo, pretty nice. It's a testament to what the Niners system is, but those two guys, along with Kittle, obviously was tremendous. But I thought, what did you think about Pearsall and Garendo's game yesterday?
Yeah, I thought Garendo was, one of the MVPs of the game. And it's interesting because the 49ers have drafted running backs early, and it seems like they've given up on some of those running backs early as well. I'm thinking about Trey Sermon and a couple of other guys who were day 2 draft picks. It seemed pretty clear early on that they were fizzling out and that the team had lost confidence in them. And early in the season, Isaac Garendo was not great when he got in the game. Hesitant, he had all this speed, but you didn't really ever see it. And the 49ers stuck with him despite, not having Christian McCaffrey, despite having all sorts of question marks at tailback after Jordan Mason. They saw something in that guy, and to their credit, what they saw is now starting to appear. And he looks like a different back. I mean, if you put his tape on from weeks 1 and 2 and versus last night, it's night and day. And, it's a matter of confidence. You're starting to see that speed appear. He had, at the end of the third quarter, he had runs of 19, 12, and then 19. And that last 19 was taken back because of a penalty. But, just showing you what he's capable of. Taking a little bit of a seam and turning it into a big gain. And the other part of that is that they threw the ball to him. I think he had either 4 or 5 targets in this game. And this was the game he didn't start. And Jordan Mason has had 13 all season. So you're seeing a guy that, he was a wide receiver at Wisconsin before they moved him to running back. So he's got receiving skills. He knows how to run routes. I think you're seeing them use him more as a third down back than they did Jordan Mason, and that's interesting moving forward as well.
Am I right? Could have had 2 touchdowns yesterday because he didn't score. That was Purdy that scored. No, he didn't score.
No, he scored 1 and then he slid.
And they slid on the other. Yeah, that's right. By the way, Matt, I think one note I picked up from yesterday's game that is also a positive. Jason and I talked a little bit about one of them earlier. Florida State's Renardo Green. Who the hell was Renardo? Was that a Dallas Maverick?
Rolando Blackman.
Rolando Blackman. Thank you. Florida State's Renardo Green, I have to throw in there, was Pro Football Focus's highest rated defensive player for the Niners yesterday. But I want to talk about Malik Mustafa. I know it's a short sample size. My God, he just looks like one of those throwback, ain't that big, but loves to hit people type of player. It looks like they got themselves a stud with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great draft class. I mean, it's all those guys are contributing, and it was the defensive guys early in the season, and they've had to go to the offensive guys, obviously, in these last couple of games, and they're kind of following suit. And yeah, Malik Mustafa is right up there. He's so aggressive. He doesn't hesitate. You're right. He's sort of a throwback safety, a guy who just comes barreling in from the secondary and hits you hard at the line of scrimmage. And, sometimes it's all or nothing, but when he connects, the guy's cut down, and he's usually cut down for no gain or a loss. That's a big deal on first and second down runs. And he absolutely brings that. There's no fear. I think one of the traits of these rookies, and Dominic Pooney, it sets the example, is that they don't look like rookies. They don't, they're not rattled. They're mature. They're smart. They don't make a lot of mistakes. I will say I'm not exactly sure what happened on that first CeeDee Lamb touchdown, the one where he's wide open on one side of the field. It's probably a combination of things, but Malik Mustafa is one of the guys that goes the other direction, and he double teams a guy that maybe doesn't need double teaming. If anybody was at fault, I might circle Mustafa for that one. And that's the downside of having not just one young guy at safety, but really you've got two young guys at safety, because Jair Brown didn't play a whole lot last season. And that's rare for teams, and that's rare for the 49ers. Usually they have the older vet back there to sort of set things up. They're relying on two mid-20s guys, and with exceptions, those guys have played very well. And again, with exceptions, they played well last night.
Matt, I'm thinking post-bye schedule. There's a lot of games people are circling, but I'm thinking about the division games, because this division, based on the Niners giving 2 games back, one to the Rams, one to the Cardinals, and how those teams have now started to play better, it's very competitive right now. I feel like those 3 games with the Rams, Seahawks, and Cardinals after the bye will all be very, very critical for the Niners.
No, I agree. I mean, that finale in Arizona, you saw that at the beginning of the season. You're like, that's probably going to be one where Brock Purdy doesn't play and they rest all their starters. That could very well come down to that game. And then the other 2 games are at home, so that's an advantage for the 49ers. They've already played in Seattle. They've already played in LA. That ought to help them moving forward. It's a tough second half of the schedule. 2 games in Florida. You got back-to-back games at Green Bay, at Buffalo. The Buffalo game is on prime time. That's going to be a very, very tough win. They were beat up during the easier part of their schedule. I think that's important to note. The second half is tougher than the first. So if you had trouble, staying healthy, staying fresh in the first half of the season, the second might be tricky as well.
Just the way we like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Complicated.
Matt, it was a choke-free segment. I think we can both be proud of that. Make sure you follow Matt Barrows both online and also at The Athletic, where he puts out all the content you could possibly want about your San Francisco 49ers and everything else we cover here on your home of the Niners, Sactown Sports. Appreciate you, my man. We'll talk to you in a week.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Take care. That's Matt Barrows. We will take a break. When we come back, just a 1-minute break here. Let's get